Casey, thanks for joining us today. Where are you calling in from?
Absolutely. I'm calling in from Plymouth, Massachusetts. We're just south of Boston.
That's
Good to
great.
see you, Jeremy. Yeah.
Good to see you. Spent a lot of time up there. I think it's great just to preface that I know it's a unique real estate market in Boston. We keep seeing all the trends where demand is softening, and it is not happening in Boston, neither for rentals or for purchases. And one reason maybe because it's so hard to build anything there, and there's just no land left. So it is a unique market. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Howzer Property Management? Kind of who your ideal client is, what a property looks like for you, how long you've been doing it, and just give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me. Yeah, so Howzer Property Management has been in business about between 6 and 6.5 years about. We are, like I mentioned, we have an office in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We also have an office in Mashpee, Massachusetts. It just helps us service our territory a bit better. Mashpee's on Cape Cod. And our focus is really small multifamily. So if you've been in New England, I'm sure you've seen what we refer to as the triple deckers. Usually it's floors high, flat roof, three apartments on either side. And so we do a lot of work outside of that, but I would say 80% of the buildings that we manage are buildings like that. And I would say 80% of the clients that we work with are, they're your bigger pockets investors. They're not, huge investors, but they're mostly not accidental landlords either.
That's great. What were you doing before you got into the sexy career of property management?
It is sexy. I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yes, my background is in sales. I worked I mostly software and tech sales, overseeing in the end large Fortune 500 sales teams, and then got into the startup space a little bit as well. So
Amazing.
not a real estate background or anything like that, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
And so, you just briefly, I mean, what allured you? Because you made your own investment, or you knew somebody that was having trouble, or did you just take a total analytical view and say, "Hey, this business makes sense"? Like, what got you in?
Well, that's exactly it. I had my company in San Francisco at the time had been not bought out, but we received a new round of funding. My position became a little bit redundant. That worked out for what I was looking to do, anyways. So my wife and I moved back to Massachusetts. I had a little bit of money, not after you money, but got a little bit of money for when the company got acquired, and decided to take some time off. I took I think 4 or 5 months off, and literally just for the first couple of months I just had fun. But after that, I started to look at business concepts. The recurring revenue model appealed to me. I did a little bit of market research. I mean, just very basic market research, calling property managers in the area. And as you know too well, nobody answered the phone. Very unprofessional. I mean, there's some really good ones here. I don't mean to say, but there were many that were not, and were just lacked the professionalism and the marketing, and the websites didn't look very good. And I said, I think we could make this work.
I don't want to labor on this too long, but it's interesting to me because for people outside the industry, I know even when I tell my friends what I do, they're just like, I still don't know what you do. How did it even get on your radar? What was the impetus that property management even popped up?
Initially I was just looking at different franchise opportunities, and there's a few of those that popped up. But it was just on Cape Cod, when you say the word property management, we're very unique here in that it means something different. It means usually what people think about is very limited to maintenance, and it's limited to lots of people have their second houses on Cape Cod. It's a tourist area, and so they think property manager, that's the person that comes and takes care of my house in the winter when I'm gone, and which is a bit of an SEO challenge for us, as I'm sure you could imagine. But I had kind of heard the term, and I started to see it online. I'm like, well, this doesn't seem like what I thought it was, and it just sparked my interest a little bit. And I'm one of the first. I've been in businesses that are recurring revenue models before, and that appeals to me. So yeah, it was random, but I thought I could do a good job at it too, right? So my background's in tech sales. I think my subspecialty within sales leadership was turnaround situations in new startup situations. So launching a new product or taking a sales team that's underperforming and turning that around. And obviously I sold technology. And so really what appealed to me of starting any company, which happened to be management, was coming in, building something right from scratch and working with great people, and then leverage the fact that I thought the market was under leveraging technology was just sort of icing on the cake. Where I'm like, how we could come in here and bring in a 21st century management model to something that looks pretty antiquated based on my initial research.
I love it. That was a great analysis. Very, very much reminds me of, the lionized story of like, Jeff Bezos had no interest in books. He just knew
Right.
that he wanted to do something on the internet. And he said, well, hey, books are easy to ship. So found
Yeah.
himself in a business that, he would have never done just based on strategy, and just based on like kind of an outsider's perspective of what was possible. So I love that about your story. I love asking that because again, I mean, we've been in this industry around the same amount of time. I still feel
Yeah.
like when I go out to dinner with friends, they're like, "Tell me what you do again." Tell me
Right.
what you like. They get the sales consulting part of it, but they don't get the property management part. And being in South Florida, the home watching is synonymous with property management as well. We have a lot of
Yeah,
sections here as well with the
for
snowbirds.
sure.
I think
You know,
it's
it's
I think our clients would just be the same people going back and forth between South Florida and Boston and Cape Cod.
You see a lot of that now with South Florida, where some agents and brokers are, they're kind of going back and forth, or they're moving from one market to the other, usually your way from here. But
Yeah.
there's some a lot of the same clients and companies and things like that. So there's some synergy there.
Yeah, absolutely. Total sidebar. Yeah, I think people in the Northeast should be hanging out with people, property managers in Florida because they probably have a lot of the same clients with
Yeah, no, I
in both
know.
places, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But no, look, I mean, the reality is that the scary thing was, right, starting the company knowing nothing about actually operationally how to do the work. I mean, I had to, figure that stuff out. Since then, I've also hired, I think you and I have talked before. I brought on my leadership team. Essentially, first, I had a really good remote employee I hired 6 months or a year in, and she's still with us, just still doing a great job. But I very quickly moved to like building this leadership team where I brought in someone who has, 15 years of experience working with the exact type of buildings that we manage. And I brought in a director that was actually a client of ours. So we managed several units for him, and then he was starting to look at career changes and things like that. So he went and worked for actually someone else who's another client of ours now, and learned the property management business. So I had to build that around me before I could start to look at really sort of aggressively growing. But it's worked, and it's been fun.
So what is that person's title?
So I have two people. I have two directors, right? One is we kind of joke because kind of give her a new title, like depending on who I'm emailing. But it's she's really a director of property management. Probably she handles all of our finance, our admin, our leasing, and she has a team under her that handles that. And then I have a director of operations that handles anything that involves touching a property, essentially. And he's got a team of techs and coordinators that work under him.
Great. I asked that because I think that it's really interesting to hear that it's one of your clients. And you're not the first person to say that to me. Some of them really good hires that we've seen people make in the industry are their
Yeah.
clients, either as their business development manager, as a kind of operation manager, or some other position that's just going to basically really be, running a department because a lot of time real estate investors don't have other full-time jobs and they're looking for one and they get it. They get it there. Like I said, we're telling our friends and family what we do. These guys get it. They understand the clientele. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's awesome that we should all be looking out for that.
They do. And, a lot of our clients are, you go back to like our ideal client profile, and, they're the bigger pockets crowd. They're the individuals that, they usually make decent money, and they want to put it some of it somewhere else other than the stock market. And they might go out and buy a duplex and house hack it. And then they want to buy a triplex, and they start to do that. And that's a wheelhouse client for us. We love working with them. We love helping them, guiding them. They're usually pretty vocal. So they're in groups on bigger pockets, and they talk to each other. And any business we get by referral is great. And so, the director of operations was one of those individuals, a younger relative, right? Younger investor, certainly on investor scale. And so he's come in and done a great job for us.
That's great. So so 6 years in, started like it's like most companies, started with a little bit of a trickle, but in the last 2 years, you've really accelerated. So I think it was 400 doors in the last 2 years. Was that correct?
So it's now it's about 300, yeah, 300 doors, close enough. 300 doors in the last 2 years, and about 200 of those in which came last year. So we're expanding, but we're also expanding the rate at which we're expanding. And the only way I could have done that is by building out that leadership team.
Evolution. So yeah, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because people love the hockey stick graph and all those things.
Yeah,
And every business I've been a part of, I mean, momentum is a real thing.
yeah.
Without getting too derailed, lack of momentum several years into a business is a really bad thing because momentum goes both ways. It goes up and it goes down. But it's like when we spoke originally, you really were investing in the fundamentals, and then now you're really accelerating. So, just kind of walk through what that journey's been like. What was holding you back from growing faster? Do you regret not making decisions sooner, or do you feel like you're on the exact right time path?
That's a good question. So the I certainly don't wish we did it later, right? So and arguably I wish we did it sooner. For me, there's this sort of, as a business owner, just sort of instinctually, I think good business owners want to deliver a good service for their clients, right? I mean, it's obviously
The good ones do.
the good ones do, right? And I know we need to make money too, and all those other things, but there is always sort of anytime I really thought about, a lot of our growth in the first few years just came from word of mouth and some third-party lead generation in some different areas, and um, I think in a way, sort of subconsciously, I was worried to go out and really focus on sales and marketing because I was worried that would mean we would not any longer provide a good service to our clients. So it would take away and we would end up sort of growing too fast or something like that. I think the what I realized was two things. One is if I can go out and build this leadership team. By the way, we have really great non-leaders at our company. So I do not mean to sort of suppress what they're doing. They're doing really, really good things, but there are times when they might need an escalation, whether it's a legal issue or a financial issue. There's just different things that we needed some leadership at our company. And so bringing them on board, I think really helped me realize, okay, now I've got the opportunity to go out and really invest some time and money and effort in sales and marketing. And that's my background. So it's exciting to be back focused on sales and marketing now. Fast forward from making that realization and hiring those two leaders, I've been almost exclusively focused on marketing, and so I can get as many details as you want, but we're hiring a sales rep, and we've redone our website, and we're working with RentScale to do some of the demand gen and different things, and so I'm really excited to be back stuck in the world that I'm comfortable with, and yeah, it's been fun. Did I answer your question?
No, you definitely did. I always kind of want to know that trajectory. And I love that you just said, I wish I did it sooner. Probably did. I think we
Oh,
all do. But, you
yeah.
had to get some things in order. And yeah, we have to attack the world with the tools we have and things have to get done. Um, I want to just kind of talk about the realization there. So I do love, you are sales and marketing background. I'd say if I had to make a pie chart of all the property managers I feel like I come in contact with, you're going to be a minority, not a super minority, it might be like 20%, but a lot
Yeah.
of people are, they come from the world of the craft of property management, right? And I always say that, like there's the craft of property management, crazy important. Don't want to be dealing with a business that doesn't understand that. But there's the business of property management, and that's, actually growing it and doing all the things that every other business in America has, which is sales, marketing, finance, all those things.
Yeah.
Um, but I would like to hear from your perspective because I think this is really useful for people that are on their own journey. What was the impetus for like, okay, I gotta move the nozzle away from the craft and more back to the scale? Was it, all at once, like you were doing a quarterly meeting or an annual planning and you said now's the time? Was it like a seed that was like bugging
Uh,
you for months that kind of grew? Like, how did that come about?
that's interesting, and I don't know if I'd thought of this until right now, but there's sort of two things. One is, I'll be 45 in a couple months, and my goal is to get this company. I don't want to sell. I don't have any intention of really selling the company, but to get this company to a point where I can put like a GM or name the title, in place that can run this company, and allows me to focus on doing some other things. So do lots of different things I want to do, not just go play golf, but some mentor opportunities and just some different things like that. That number in my head has always been 50. And I've sort of had this realization like, well, you're getting there. And there's two options at this point in someone's life. They either sell out on that dream or they figure out how to get there, right? And I have to figure out how to get there in the next 5 years. And so that's sort of like historically like where my brain is at. But what I think, there's a group I'm in called Level Up Mastermind, and it's a lot of really smart people that are in real estate in one way or the other: agents, lawyers, finance, property managers. A great group. And we had a guest on our show and on our call, and he said, he was talking about how you just have to kind of like over invest. You have to go all in at some point, like if you want to grow. Right. And so his example was he had bought a billboard in the Boston area when he was like a young broker, and that blew his business up. Now he's just, he's always just spending all this money to grow his business. But his thing was, I can't tell you how many, this is his quote, it's close to it, but he said something like, I can't tell you how many of my friends that owned brokerages 15 years ago were bragging about their 30% margins. He said 20%. He's like, mine's 20%, but if it's a much, 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 much bigger number. And so the point, I think what really sort of stuck in my head about that is you can, when you're a young business, there's a lot of talk in the management space about like this 33% margin. It's what Profit Coach says, it's what everyone says. And I think it's a good, it's a good starting point, but there are two options. You can milk your margins, or you can invest some of that back in the business and grow. And then that 30% of a bigger number is obviously a bigger number. And so that all just kind of came together for me. I think at the end of last year, as I started to say, you know what, like I've got kind of 5 years to go before that 50 thing. And as I started planning and looking at 2025 and my 10-year or 5-year plan and all that, that's where that all came clear to me.
That's great. Okay, yeah. So beginning with the end in mind has been a principle that's worked really well with me because it's so easy and natural and useful to focus on the next 6 inches in front of your face or the next, 100 feet. It's so natural. Like, because if you don't look ahead, if you're driving, you're gonna run into a tree. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's far less natural to be like, okay, where's the real destination? And I know that I was driving to Chicago, but do I still want to go to Chicago, or is Chicago the best place I should be? And what am I going to do when I get to Chicago? So
Right.
the beginning with the end in mind is like the one of my mentors who I love. I don't know if you know Jack Daly. Learned a lot about. He was the guy that shifted me from getting good at the craft of sales to getting good at the craft of sales management and
Yeah.
actually like, building at an organizational level. And it was amazing. But he says all the time, he basically ran two different billion-dollar companies. Like he ran the sales team for that. And he said, guys, the reason people get big and people don't get big is because most people focus on the urgent at the expense of the important. And unfortunately, the urgent and the important are two different things. It's really
Yeah.
hard to ignore the urgent, and it's really easy to ignore the important. And so, like that's just my kind of lesson is like you can't forget about the important.
For sure, for sure. And another analogy playing off that same idea is, I had a friend who said to me, how many more hours a week do you think Papa John works, or than the pizza guy down the street?
Yeah.
Maybe one works 60 and one works 50. Who knows which one works how many? Maybe one works 30. But there's only so many hours in a week that, Papa John's just spending his time differently than the single shop pizza owner. So, there's that idea. And then there's this other idea where it's like, if we're going to grow, I might as well grow fast now and take advantage of the lifetime value of that client over the next 5 years rather than sort of
Ah.
spread it out more.
Wow, that's a great point to bring up, right? I think a lot of people would push back on you and say, if I bring in too many of the wrong clients, I don't know my act together. And
Yeah.
just said something very more colorful than my act together.
Yeah.
If I don't my act together, that's just going to be pain for me. But I love the way that you're just like, well, if I'm going to grow, get them now. Because a customer today, it's kind of like making, a dollar today versus a dollar 10 years from now with inflation. Like a customer today is worth more than a customer 18 months from now, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's the rev rec model, right? That's what it says. Clients you bring in January generate more revenue this year than clients you bring in December. So it's a little bit of playing with numbers, but we want to grow.
That was a great reminder, even for me, Casey. The client, I mean, it's so nobody's going to argue with the client that you bring in January is worth more than the client you bring in May or June or
Yeah,
December. So
yeah,
I absolutely love that. It's that
yeah,
simple sometimes.
yeah,
But again, you purposely didn't grow in the beginning. You had to get your head wrapped around that. So you kind of mentioned we were talking about, as the business owner, you want to have a good product, but you felt like there was a little bit of tension there. You were always balancing like, can I still provide a good service and grow fast? How does that look in your mind today, and how has that changed?
yeah. It's a good question. So the first thing I'd say is getting the right team in place, not just leaders, but really just different key components. Bringing our maintenance in house. I mean, we sort of did all of these things over the last 2 years that made me think, we're so much better at servicing our clients now than we ever used to be. The other thing I'd say is this: is I think a lot of times, at least I used to, I assume other people think about um, growth and fast growth and customer client service or client satisfaction is sort of I don't know if mutually exclusive is the right word, but sort of eating into each other. What I mean by that is if I'm putting all these resources into sales and marketing, are we growing so fast that I can't service my existing clients? And I had this sort of epiphany where, I don't think they're that detached. I think like when you bring on a client, you have to make sure their initial experience is really, really good. You're not going to forget to like onboard them well because you want them to have a good onboarding experience so that they go out and they tell their friends, right? Particularly that, hey, look, these in their associates, like these guys are great. We're having a good experience with them, and that's going to lead to more sales. And so I think I was worried like if we go think about growth, we'll forget about everything else. That's not been the case. In fact, since we were kind of in this where we are in the timeline right now, is we've brought on, we've listed our sales rep position. We've gotten leads simple. We're loading in a bunch of stuff in there. We've got a great plan together where we're going to start talking about marketing and stuff like that. But like during that time period, I wouldn't say equally as focused, but I've had my team certainly as equally as focused on how do we make sure that when we bring those clients on board, we provide a really great service because we want to generate clients that generate more clients, right? And so it's been interesting that it's like the more we focused in sales, the more it's caused us to focus on the onboarding experience.
Hmm.
And by the way, I think the onboarding experience is, I mean, that's it, right? If you onboard a client really, really well, that's 80% because you got all the right information, you've established a good working relationship, you've done all these things right. Of course, we've got to maintain that client, but I want to make sure that we really provide a good onboarding experience, we onboard the properties effectively, learn how they want to communicate with us, and all those things.
It's fantastic. Making some great notes. I also agree that the growth and great service do not have to be mutually exclusive, but I
Yep.
also love the way that you positioned it, that actually they're kind of actually catalyst of each other. Because it's like
Yeah.
if you know you're bringing a lot of clients, now you have more time and reason and money to invest in great onboarding. And then if
Yeah.
you're doing great onboarding, that's going to want to make you grow faster because you're like, look, this system's dialed in. Let's go get more of those people to put through the system. And I think I've really experienced that as well. It's like if it's lumpy, it's like the opposite. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, we got to go focus on that, and they're like, oh, geez, now we got to go focus on onboarding these guys. Oh, geez, we got to go get more clients now. You know what I mean? But when they're
Yeah.
both going, like, it's like the flywheel.
Literally, we had a joke. We had a joke as my coordinator Leslie and I, who she was my first hire. She said we had it'd been like 6 months since we brought on a new client. We're like, wait, how do we do this again? Like, what do we? Oh, we got to go get keys. Like all that. We were just so focused for a while in this,
Yes.
in this like let's make sure we get everything perfect with process. And that's funny because when I started, Jeremy, like I was sort of the opposite. So we grew. Our first year we added 150 doors or something, and that was faster than I think most of my peers, at least most of the people that I spoke with. And there were two camps of people. There were the people that had to get everything exactly perfectly figured out. And they were like, after a year, they're at like 10 doors. And then there's these other people that maybe were at the other end of the spectrum, such as myself. And it's like I knew that. And I had to learn that lesson all over again, like 2 years ago, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in that same thing as we were before, where it's like I've got to go out and actually focus on growing this thing. It's crazy.
So amazing. I mean, this is the difference of the mentality of a small business and a large business. A large business would never even imagine that. Like, we got a whole department of people to sell. We got a whole department of people to onboard. We couldn't afford them if we weren't doing it all the time. Small business is like whatever, like a bare minimum, like whatever I can do. Like, if we could bring a client on once in a while, good. And then we'll, like you said, what do
Right.
we do again? That lumpiness is so, it's like speed breaks to me.
Yep.
Like, nobody wants to bring on one new client once in a while. It's not going to be a
Right.
good onboarding experience. You want to be
Right.
like, this is the sixth call today I've had with a new client just like you. And I'm a big believer in momentum. I say with my sales team, like, there was a day where I had a sale, like, I don't do a lot of the sales in the company, but I'll share this with you. Casey, I had like two sales calls, and then I had a sales rep get sick and he had like six. I did 8 calls in one day. I think I closed the last four effortlessly, and the only reason was because I was so polished and I was so
Yes.
on my game. And I was like, I've been doing this all day. I know exactly, like, the words are just flowing out. I was listening, I was hearing the right things. Momentum is so important in business, and people just don't talk enough about it.
I think you're right. And that's why, a big decision for us was bringing on this sales rep that we're recruiting for right now. I want someone that lives it, they breathe it. Even if they, close 30% or 40%, they're still talking, the other 70%, they still practice their pitch and answer the questions that they need to know the answers to and things like that. So I think
Yeah,
that's really going to help us too, where when we have someone fully focused on in the sales role, it's going to be a lot more consistent for us.
I love that. All right. You've made this pivot to growing, which I'm very excited to hear about. Obviously, I know we're a big part of that.
Yes,
But
you are.
what are you doing? What's the plan? Because you're going big, you're taking action, and I just want to say, I want to shout out to you that um, watching you take action is amazing. Like, you get an idea, once you've decided to do it, you're doing it. And I don't just mean that with what you're doing with us. Like, we've just seen that from you overall, which is amazing. So, walk us through what 2025 looks like? Because what are the crazy stuff you got on your plate?
Yeah, awesome. So the from a sales and marketing standpoint, that is again where almost all of my focus is right now. And so that starts with we've revamped the entire website and we've really put it in the frame of the client. So if you look at a lot of property management websites, they're all about like what we do. This is like what we do for a client, and it's subtle, but that new website's going to launch in a couple of weeks. We've got videography and photographs. So if you look at our website or lots of companies' websites, they're just sort of these packaged photographs and videos that have come from wherever. But homes here don't look like they do in Florida, and they don't look like they do in Utah. And so getting pictures of relevant stuff is going to be helpful for our website. We've bought Lead Simple. So we're launching with Lead Simple with your team. Jen's done an absolutely amazing job working with a marketing consultant that's local, where she's almost like a part-time person for us, who's going to implement things like direct mail, things like AdWords. It's the new customer machine program that we're working on with you guys. Really, really excited about that. There's a lot of moving pieces because we had to decide we wanted it. Then we had to have someone here that can help implement the great plan that's put together.
Yeah.
So that took a couple little time to figure that out. And then we've just launched this sales rep search as well, where, they're going to go out and do a lot of outbound stuff, but they're also going to be focused on handling, the leads that we generate through the new customer machine program. So lots of different things going on there, some YouTube ads, things like that.
And what I really was excited to hear, because I've been on this journey myself and I've seen other people do it. 6 years into the business, you kind of finally decided, hey, I got to work on sales and marketing all the time.
Yep.
And then it was
Yep.
a little bit of a relief. Like I said, some people are operators, they don't want to do that, but I think they need to do it, to be honest with you.
Yep.
You were excited to get back to it. Um, walk through or share your thoughts on this hypothesis. I think that the kind of the journey of the business owner, right? Not working in the business. We all have jobs.
Yep.
So I am both CEO of Renscale and owner of Renscale, and I realize I have different, things to do, and, publisher of Strategic PM. So I've got my job to do, but when I'm really at my highest value, I'm business owner Jeremy, right? And I think that business owner should be marketing and innovation. I'm either completely pushing my product forward, not in the day to day, not in the nuance, but in the how I package it or how I'm getting it out there with a story and getting in front of people. And that's a Peter Drucker comment that goes way back to like the 60s, right? All business differentiation is basically marketing and innovation.
Yep.
But what are your thoughts on that? Why is it just because you're a sales and marketing guy, or do you feel like this is the area that all business owners should be kind of evolving to?
I feel like whatever the business owner focuses on, if they're a good leader, like that's should be what gets focused on, right? Um, I think that to me, I think what my biggest things you mentioned two or three things that you feel your job are as the business owner. To me, it's hiring and keeping the best people,
Yep.
right? It's setting the direction, um, and it's looking outward. So what's coming? Is there, and I think if you hire a good leadership team or have a good implementer or something, that they're focused more inward. How do we make the processes better and stuff like that? So, and that's just what I think. I might not be right, but what I realize is if I'm going, I can't do it all. I can't go grow this business and hire the best and do those three things I just mentioned. And so what I'm personally focused on right now is making sure we get the systems in place and we figure out we're going to throw all this stuff against the wall and see what marketing channels work for us. And we're going to hire this really good sales rep. And I'm going to help figure out how we make this whole thing work by working with your team and with our sales rep and with our marketing person. And once we figure out how it works, they're going to go and continue to iterate on that, sure, but they're going to implement all that. And that's going to allow me to continue to focus on having the right people, setting the direction, and looking outward for threats and opportunities and things like that. But I can't do both. I can't be like this full-time salesperson or marketing person and then also go build this great company. And so this is, while I'm interested in sales and marketing, I know that my role is to get it going and establish success metrics and things like that, not to be in that role perpetually.
Great share, Casey. So this is now the focus as you get it healthy, the way you got your operations healthy. This is just the new season you're in.
Yep,
You're going to do it while you can do it, and you're going to bring other people in, and you're going to mentor them, and then you're going to set standards, and then you expect them to make it even better. And then you're going to move on to the next piece of the vision.
that's right. Yeah, you said it better than I said it, but that's precisely what I meant.
No, you
So
said
yeah,
you
no,
said it well. You reminded me that is the point. I mean, all
yeah,
things that we do should be turned into systems that other people can not only do but make better. I mean,
yep,
that's the best thing about running a business, in my opinion, is when you create a system that solves a problem and then you watch other people make it even better. And you just
100%.
believe it. And it's growth.
It's interesting you say that because I do think there are some in the management space there of this idea like they need to think of every process right down to the tiniest little thing, and all their people's job is to go like implement that. That may work for some people. I don't think I could keep very many people working for me if they weren't allowed to iterate. Now, one of our core values is iterate and improve. So certainly, most of our good ideas, once I sort of package it up and hand it off, most of our good ideas from that point forward come from the people doing the work.
That's great. Innovation is a great value to have in your company, and to empower other people to do that is not only nice, but it's a luxury, right? As an owner to know that things are getting better when you get away from it, not degrading by the day, which I think so many
Right.
owners do have businesses that the day they take their personal foot off the gas in any department, they are just slowly degrading and they have to come back in and fix them. And I
Right.
definitely, with the right people, which is what it comes down to, and clear direction, by the way, the right people and clear direction. You can have great people, and if they can have a totally different idea of where they want to take something, and then you come back and you're like, whoa, you've completely got away from our brand promise or what we expect from our clients or our values. So setting that clear direction and then empowering the right people is just this amazing luxury as a business owner to see that. I'm glad that
It
you
is.
are experiencing that.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so I want to circle back to something I pinned that you said earlier. You said, okay, when I'm in my mind, when I'm 50, I've got other things I want to be doing, and it's not all margaritas on the beach, some other stuff. So, share a vision. What is it that's on your mind? What do you want to be doing? Do you mind share as much or as little as
Yeah,
you're comfortable?
yeah. No, it's fine. So I am, I'm obviously someone who made a shift from big corporate and startup world to starting my own business. I don't think there is any understanding. Uh, I don't think there's very much understanding in startup technology space of, hey, what it's like to go start a small business. And I think, what's nice about a small business, if you build a successful one, let's just throw a random number out there, you build a successful small business and you're making, I don't know, $300,000, $400,000 in cash flow, but you also have an asset, right? You have business, the business itself is worth something. And outside of the very most senior leadership in for companies that are doing very, very well, it's not like you're walking away when you're 50 with a huge 401k or something like that. To really build an asset, you've got to either start your own business or be very high up in the space. And so I want to coach uh, young entrepreneurs or any entrepreneur really, if they want to get into it when they're 60, I'm happy to help. But with not simple ideas, but I don't think I'm going to add the value of like how to launch a unicorn in Silicon Valley. I think I can add a lot of value and say, hey, I'm graduating high school. College isn't really for me, but I'm smart and I work hard and I want to learn how to do this and start a landscaping company or something like that. So I want to, work with kids. My vision is more just some younger people that are in that type of situation and not and do some seed money type stuff and try to get them going and take an active interest in making sure their business is successful, but certainly not a majority ownership role or anything like that. And get involved in 5 or 10 businesses where I spend 20 hours a week, coaching and supporting and things like that. And if they do well, maybe I make a little bit of money, but the primary play is more, get involved and help some people do well.
That's amazing. As we may, you build your own little portfolio, and yeah, portfolios are fantastic. Whether they're giant
Yeah.
companies, tons of real estate, tons of stocks that you've picked out and owned for 60 years, or they're five friends' businesses that you invested in and you've got a vested interest. I mean, that's leverage and a really high level. And I get it. You're not doing it to make the money. You're doing it to give back. But I mean, I just think that's got to be something that's such a great vision just to think about, hey, I'm gonna have this little portfolio of people that I'm investing in
Yeah.
personally and professionally, and it's got to give you a lot of returns no matter what happens.
I think it'd be great. I think it'd be lots of fun to do it and, be a service as well. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think, that would be a situation where I've got somebody full time running this business. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's doing monthly updates or, if I'd be happy to do, if we've got like a large strategic sale or something, I'd be happy to get involved. It's not like it's not like I hate it. I love my company. I like the team I work with and stuff like that. But, somebody on my leadership team, hopefully at some point wants to take on additional responsibility as well. And, I don't think they need me sticking around forever, annoying them.
Casey, I think this is such a great vision to crystallize for people watching or reading this because so many people are just fixated on I'm going to get to X number of doors, I'm going to do this, I'm going to exit. And while doors are such a great parallel for kind of winning yards, like yards on a football field, at the end of the day, I like to build businesses that I never want to sell, that are assets. I buy stocks that I want to hold for almost ever, if not at least 20 years. It's just kind of the investor that I am, both in my businesses and any investment I make. I want to buy properties that I never want to sell. Now, things may happen where they're not as good as I thought they were, and you need to make decisions, but I always go in with this idea of like the long term. And I just don't think enough small business owners understand that the goal is not the destination of the value, but it can be the destination of the shape the vehicle turns into. And that is, would you rather build it and sell it and that money is static in the bank and starts losing money the next day? Or do you want a machine that you built that other people are running and you get as an asset and you get as a resource that you can tap into to do cool things, to meet new people, to build other businesses. And so I love that your destination is less of a finish line and more of a machine that you're building.
I appreciate that. I will say initially it wasn't. Initially it was 100% let me get into this and build a company and sell it. There's a lot of different things that have played into why that's changed. But I had forgotten in the end of my work in the corporate world, I had lost. So in a way, I didn't realize it till after. That's not why I left, but I realized it after. I'd sort of lost my enthusiasm, and the things that made me good no longer existed inside of me. Particularly, my enthusiasm for people and designing process and uh, ability to get people excited about around a common goal and things like that. I felt like those had been sort of sucked out of me at some level, and the enjoyment just wasn't there anymore. And so, yeah, when I started this business, I said, well, maybe I just don't like working. I don't know. So I'll start this business and I'll grow it and I'll sell it. And I can't tell you how much fun I've had actually building the business and learning, oh, I am a pretty good leader. I'm not perfect, but I'm a pretty good leader. And people, I think, generally like working with me. And I can make people have a good job. A lot of our core values are around making sure people have a great place to come to work every day. And I think generally we do that. We're not perfect, but we do that. And now the idea of selling it, it seems kind of like, I don't know, what am I going to do with $5 million? I'd rather get, like some money every year and have a team that can continue to carry this thing forward.
Cannot agree more. I know everybody's got their own goals and there's no right
And that's
answer.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm glad that, I'm glad you shared that. I'm glad more people realize that's an option on the table because it gets far less attention than the big exit.
Right.
Proven to make people sometimes miserable.
I think so. And, different people have different life circumstances too.
Yeah,
I don't want to say that's the right opportunity for everyone. For me, I think it is at this point, and that may change, but I think it is.
absolutely. Well, this is amazing. All right, I know we're coming out of time. This is great. I got so many good notes from this, so many good shares. I want to make sure we cover. It's just you seem so good on vision and kind of beginning with the end in mind, that destination. So a
Yep.
year from now, we're checking in, into the first quarter, maybe in 2026. What's the
Yep.
business look like? What are your goals?
Oh, I was going to pull out my vision track sheet organizer, but I guess I don't
Yes.
have.
Even better that you actually have it in writing and you're not going to make up
It,
the answer right now.
yeah. So I'll kind of stay away from revenue, I think, but we'd like to add 250 to 300 new units this year.
Okay.
We have four full-time in-house maintenance technicians now. We want to double that. So again, this balance between growth and making sure we're able to service those clients. So that they'll have 8 trucks in the field. We're going to have new office space. We've got a lot of stuff going on this year, but it all really starts with the sales and marketing hire. I say to my team, we want to go from being a company to a brand regionally. I don't have plans to be like a national brand, but a regional brand. I want people to say, we know who that is. We've seen those trucks. We've heard they do a good job.
Yeah,
And whether I can do that in 1 year, I'm not sure, but that's what we're looking for.
that's perfect. Thanks so much, Casey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good chat. Love it.